chat box, please. All those who can hear me, just write number 1 in the chat box. All those who are able to hear me, okay. Dr. R. Porita, all right. Prakash, all right. Only 2 of us are going to have the session. What about the others? There are others who have logged in. All those who can hear me, we are almost 14 of us, okay, 4 of them. Mohammed Amil Haq, Lakshmi, all right. Who else? Um, number 1 in the chat box, please. Okay. Hi, Mohammed. Okay. So we are almost 6, 7. Okay. We are almost 6, 7 of us who are active on this platform today, and then we go ahead with it. All right. So let me start sharing my PPT, and then I'll come back to you again. So, welcome to this FDP, which is being organized by IoT Academy. And being the first day, I'm sure you will be having a lot of high expectation from the resource person. I just personally hope that I'm able to live up to the expectation of my august people here today. So, the topic that I'm going to cover today, it all talks about the introduction to the research methodology. And we all know that when we are from academia, somebody may be a professor, somebody may be an associate professor or an assistant professor, research scholar, so on and so forth. And we know that research is an inevitable part of our lives. We cannot stay without research, and definitely we need a lot of APIs also for our research. So the topic holds a lot of importance in our daily lives also. And I will be trying to give you the overview of the research methodology, trying my level best to give you maximum in 1 hour. But it says that, a smile is a handshake with your face. So all those people who are connected on this platform with me today, I greet everyone with a big smile, ensuring that, you have a great learning session with me as well as for the 5 days ahead also. So I really don't want myself that immediately as soon as I come with you, and I really don't want myself that I should embark upon you with my lot of content related with research. So what I had planned, I'll be giving only, excuse me, I will be giving only 2 minutes of time in this ice breaking session, right? So what I really want from you is, like, I want you to get some kind of introduction of yours, just to let me know what is your name or from which part of the country you have actually joined. Only 2 minutes of time, because I just have 1 hour session generally. I've got a lot of things to share with you all. So very quickly, I'll just stop presenting here. So anybody can, like all those people who have written number 1 in the chat box. So you can unmute yourself and you can very quickly give us a small introduction of yourself. Hello? Anybody?
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Mohammed Arshad. I work as an assistant professor in New
Yes,
College, and I have around 3 years of experience, and I'm looking forward for your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So which part of the country you're joining from, sir?
This is I'm from Chennai, ma'am.
You're from Chennai. All right. Wonderful. Well, welcome to the session.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Renuka, I can see so
Thank
many
you.
number 1 in the chat box. Yeah. Okay. Renuka, Dr. Surya Prabha, Madam. Anyone? Prakash, Lakshmi, where are they? So if we are going to have it like this, so I'm sure that's going to be a little monotonous for you. But anyone can unmute yourself, and because I think the rights have been given to you to unmute and introduce yourself, please.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
I'm Dr. R. Portia from Arahapa University, Karaikudi.
Where is it,
I'm
ma'am?
in Karaikudi, Tamil Nadu, ma'am.
Tamil Nadu. Okay. Okay.
I'm working as an associate professor in College of Education, Arahapa University College of Education.
Welcome to the session, ma'am. Welcome. All
Thank
right.
you,
So
ma'am.
sure south must be raining, must be pouring like anything, though it's very dry in north as of now. Welcome to the session. All right, so without wasting much of the time, we had just a small round of introduction. So people have actually joined from the different parts of the country, and we just hope that we have a great learning experience today. Because I intend to give you, a lot. I'm sure there are people who are quite well experienced, but yes, we can always skill ourselves, and we can always reskill ourselves. So that was a small round of introduction. So it says that, we all need some oxygen in our lives to breathe, right? So in that similar fashion, when we are in academia or once we are into any kind of profession, especially into academics, we need oxygen also. So for us, like for people like, like us, or maybe the research scholars, we are all on the same platform of research, right? So we also need some kind of excellence, and that excellence is nothing but it is just about the being offline and online. So even if we talk about our research also, we cannot bypass the importance of the online way by which we can do our research, because it is quite helpful in a number of ways. And of course offline, it's again the primitive way of doing our research. So, my dear friends, when we talk about research, basically we know that research is nothing but is just something, we are all into it. We are all trying to explore new things, and we are trying to find out two things. Either we are trying to find out a problem, or we are trying to find a solution to the problem. So, more or less, research happens to be the investigation, and it says that it is a systematic way of going down and delving deep down into the concepts and finding out the motive or the objectives that we have taken. As a researcher, we all know, maybe in for our paper publication, or maybe for a dissertation, or maybe for a thesis, definitely what is most important part is that we need to have a objective, like the we should be very very clear what we are researching. Somebody may be researching in chemistry, somebody may be researching in biology, somebody may be researching in history. So in any field we are researching, we have to be very sure what we are doing it. So there's a word which talks about research. So R is basically the recognition of the information need. Now when we talk about the recognition of the information need, it basically talks about the purpose that we are doing the research for. For example, as I told you, that the research can be either done for the purpose of finding the problem, or it could be done with the purpose of problem solving research. So if we talk about research, so they can be the identification part, or it can be related with the problem solving. Now, E is for the effective decision making. Why are we doing any kind of research? Maybe we are doing it for the organization, maybe we are doing for the government organization. However, we need to take a decision, especially anything which is related with the marketing research. All those the big corporate houses, they shell out thousands of money in doing research just to ensure, what kind of decisions they have to take place. Then as a systematic, there's a proper procedure which has to be followed. Then we have to exclude few things, and we have to disseminate the information. Now when we talk about information, we know that any research is not possible without having any kind of information. Basically we know that there can be two kind of research, the qualitative and the quantitative. So once we have the quantitative, definitely we need to have a lot of data at our end. So how do we collect data? So there are different data collection methods by which we can always get data, and then we can apply our statistical test, and then we can draw inferences. When we talk about inferences is nothing but is just means the conclusion that can be drawn. So that is a part of our analysis. So once we have the data, we apply different kind of statistical tools, and we come down to the proper figures, and we interpret those figures. Then R is for recommendation for action. So as I told you, either we are there can be different kind of research design that I will be talking about. Some maybe some of them, they may be exploring something, maybe somebody something is being discovered, or maybe something there is a description of something, or something is or there may be anything which is talking about the causal relationship between the different kind of variables that we have, that is the independent variable or the independent variable, so on and so forth. So once we have that kind of data with us, we can always apply different tests, and these tests, they can be used for decision making for the different managers. So definitely research is nothing but is just the collection, organizing, and evaluation of the data in a proper systematic way, with the purpose of having proper decisions that can be taken. Because we have to understand, whosoever is doing a research on a very large level, so it can have a not any wrong decision at any point of time. We consider ourselves to be like I am from Commerce department. So supposing I talk about manager, if I am the manager of the company, so any wrong action at one point of time, it can have it can have ripple effect, bad ripple effects in my entire organization. So I have to be very, very careful that, what decision do I take, maybe in terms of our stakeholders. These stakeholders can be our they can be our customers, they can be our clients, they can be our shareholders, they can be our outsiders, and so on and so forth. So why do we actually do the research? Definitely, we need to get some kind of a benefit. We are trying to do some kind of offer something, maybe to the big organizations, maybe our government, or maybe the government can always take help from our research papers, or maybe the working papers which are actually done in IIMs and all. They can always propose their ideas, and then the decisions can be taken. So why do we do research? Is just to validate our intuition, whatever I'm thinking, is it right or wrong? So for that purpose, we in our research, we formulate a different kind of hypothesis also. So when we talk about hypothesis nothing but it's just a wild guess that we are making, and we want to know to what an extent it is correct. So again, we are doing a research, and there's a proper procedure which has to be followed. We can do research in order to improve our methods, or maybe demands of the job. So demands of the job is again a different topic, a little tangent to our what our topic is. But of course, demands of the job is like, when once the manager or the management, they know that, what are the needs of my people or my stakeholders, then accordingly the action can be taken. And the last one is actually applicable to our academia for publication and patent purpose. So once we are into academia, as I told you, it is an inevitable part of our life that we have to go for the research. Now, how to choose a subject? So naturally, the field that we belong to, we can always pick up a subject on the basis of our idea, or maybe on an experience, or maybe our reading, originality, anything. You just move around, you just observe, and then you see, then okay, now this is the topic which I need to research upon. And nobody can say anything, which is right or wrong in the case of research. Whatever you do, it's always unique. So anything which that is why we, if you know that, in our academics also, we have got something known as literature review. So literature review is something where the work which has already been done by our previous people, we are trying to find out the gaps, and once we are able to find out the gaps, we are trying to focus on those gaps, and we are going to do that research. So that is also part of it. As far as the characteristics of the research is concerned, it's all systematic, logical, and empirical. It's again, the conclusions can be drawn. You're doing any research for the sake of doing it, but we are not getting any end result. It's all futile. The efforts will be all futile. So if we are doing any kind of empirical research, we are going to get some kind of conclusion. For example, if there is a washing machine company, maybe IFB, they want to know how the company is doing in terms of their fully automatic machine. So if we do the research, if we have the data, we do the entire part, we follow the entire procedure, and then we draw out the conclusion, no, this is the product which we need to scrap out, or this is the product which we need to carry on further, so on and so forth. Then there's some kind of objectivity. For example, there are some kind of research questions which have to be answered. Now, how do we find out of the research questions? For example, you have to be very sure what are your objectives of your research. Whether you are trying to study the behavior pattern, whether you're trying to study the analysis part, or you're trying to explore something, or you're trying to describe anything, that has to be very, very much clear in our minds also. And of course, we know that it is like, accurate measurements can be done. Now, where there are different kind of steps also which are involved in our research. For example, we have to choose the subject very carefully, which is the topic that we are going to work on. For example, like maybe somebody may be working on liberalization, maybe somebody is working on working capital, maybe somebody is talking about biodiversity, maybe somebody is talking about sustainability, anything. We can do research on any of the topics, and you have to be very clear that there can be qualitative research and there can be quantitative research. And of course, quantitative research is more difficult because it is more empirical, because we can always take out the conclusion. Then we have got the literature review survey, is again the literature review part. That means we are trying to identify the gaps. Okay, what was done and what is still pending to be complete. So we are trying to find out the thrust areas where we can actually use those thrust areas for our research purpose. Then we have got then we prepare the objectives. What are the objectives on the basis of the problem that you have taken. Then we prepare the synopsis. Then we have got, on the basis basis of the objectives, we go for the hypothesis building. So a hypothesis, as I told you, is nothing but is just a wild guess. Whatever I'm thinking, is it correct or not? For example, if I say, is there any relationship between the culprit and the crime that has been committed? I want to see whether there exists any relationship or no. So definitely that would be a part of my hypothesis. Then they, at times, maybe if we talk about the scientific research, there can be some kind of instruments which can be used. If we talk about the social science research, then of course these apparatus and materials will not be used. So more or less the process will remain the same, but the execution, or maybe the way we apply the test, that can differ. Then we know that when we have got that kind of data analysis that has done. Data analysis is always done on the basis of the data collected. Now there are different ways by which we can collect data. For example, they can be primary data, they can be secondary data. Primary data is the first hand data, secondary data is the second hand data that we can always have from the different kind of databases, from journal, from magazines, from anywhere we can have it. Then we have got hypothesis testing. That is, I told you that hypothesis testing itself is a big topic on its own. So we trying to figure out whether what I'm thinking is right or wrong. Then we have got the results. Now how do we get the results? We apply different kind of statistical tests which are based on certain criteria, and then we find out to what an extent these the conclusions, they can be generalized. So these of course we talk about the sample, we talk about the parameter, we talk about the population. So all those people who are into this research for the first time, these words may be new to you. For example, if I talk about population, so population means the people from whom you are going to collect the data. Then sample means, of course, you cannot go to each one of you and to collect the data, so you will be picking up a sample. The sample will be a kind of a representation of the entire population. Then there's a word which is known as a parameter. So parameter is like, what are you trying to find out? For whether you're trying to find out something related with the length, whether you're trying to find out something related with the breadth, age, whatever it is. So it is actually the kind of a which justifies our population, so on and so forth. And lastly, once we have that, then we go ahead with the project writing. So as far as this process of research is concerned, the first step is very much clear, that we have to identify the question or the problem. What am I going to do? Where, for example, I want to do a research, for example, on wearable technologies. I want to see whether the people who wear these medical devices, to what an extent they are good enough. Or maybe on the other hand, the people, they can go for, any kind of, problem. You want to find out to what an extent the gig workers, people are happy and satisfied, or what is their future prospect, anything. So that is the kind of a problem that you have taken, and where you are going to actually work. Then we talk about the objectives. So objectives, they have to be very specific, because on the basis of our objectives only, we will be going for the hypothesis. So if your objectives are very clear, will be in a position to draft your hypothesis. So why this hypothesis is important? Because on the basis of the objective, on the basis of the hypothesis, we will be designing the questionnaire. So the getting responses from the questionnaire, I'm sure it's a very, very tedious task, collection, getting the responses. So at any point of time, if you draft the wrong questions or unwanted questions, so definitely you will be deviating from your research. Then we have to talk about the research design. Now this research design, it's a very, very huge topic, where we talk about, which actually talks about that the research design, it gives us the outflow, how we are going to follow our research. So there can be different kind of research design. For example, they can be exploratory research design, descriptive, casual, or maybe for example, there can be number of other research designs, right from cross sectional to longitudinal research design. It all depends that what kind of topic you have taken and what we have to do. So that is a part of a research design. Then we go for the final testing or hypothesis making, and then we go
Ma'am?
you have to talk about the topic, you have to talk about your objectives, you have hypothesis, you have to talk about your questionnaire designing, you have to talk about your data collection. Once we have your data, then we go for the analysis part. As soon as we go for the analysis part, the inferences are drawn. So that is only our proper research design. So actually, so it talks about that, it talks about the process where why we need to have that, because a lot of money is involved, a lot of manpower is involved. So we have to we have to do a lot of planning also well in hand, because anything goes wrong, so our purpose would get defeated. So for example, research design is again the entire structure that we are going to have. They can be some kind of maybe experimental research, or they can be quasi-experimental, co-relational. I want to find out, is there any relationship between doing exercise and our health, being healthy? For example, I want to find out the correlation, so on and so forth. So, and the research method, it can be qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method. So there are different kind of researches that we do. For quantitative is basically where we go for the data collection, and the choice depends upon us, that whether we want to go for the qualitative research or whether we want to go for the quantitative research. Then we have certain instruments which have to be taken into cognizance. For example, how we are going to collect the data. For example, it is with the help of the different kind of databases, or maybe interviews, observation, focus interviews, so on and so forth. So there can be number of ways by which we can collect our data. Again, the method of collection of the data will be dependent upon the kind of research that we are doing. But more authentic research is of course the empirical one, the quantitative one, because it is more scientific. Then sampling is like how we are going to select the people, what kind of sampling we are going to do. So there can be some kind of probable sampling, or they can be non-probability sampling methods, which I will talk about. So there can be different ways. There may be researcher who would be doing research on as per their convenience, or there can be some quota sampling, judgmental sampling, or maybe systematic, stratified, because the population is very huge. You cannot go to everyone and collect data. So you have to be judicious enough, deciding what kind of sampling we have to use and which method of sampling we are going to apply. And of course, then we go for the data collection. Once the data is collected, we apply different kind of statistical test to get the responses. Then we also, once we have this we have got data, we go for the validity and reliability. So this is also very essential. So because the most important part of any research is the data collection, and that is the most time consuming activity that we have. So as far as this validity and reliability is concerned, we have to be very sure the questions that I'm posing, is it relevant? Am I getting the responses that I really wish to see? So on and so forth. So there can be different kind of tests that can be applied. And then we talk about the ethical issue that, okay, we are not doing any kind of plagiarism. We are not copying the research of anybody. So research design is basically talks about the entire structure. It's a kind of a plan or a strategy that we have, which helps us to finish the research well in time along with the budget constraints. Now, there are certain important concepts, people they talk about, at times people they get confused between the words like variable, or people they get confused with the words like construct. So at any point of time, you don't have to get construct, even when you don't have to get confused. Like generally what happens is like, construct is the abstract form. Okay. So like, for example, you want to be very sure that, what kind of attribute you're trying to check in your research. For example, I want to see the judgment, whether I want to see the beauty, whether I want to check the happiness level, whether I want to see the health level. These are all the abstract form. I want to see the satisfaction level of the IFB working machine, for example, or fully automatic machine. So I'm trying to check the satisfaction level. So satisfaction is the kind of a construct that we have, and it is a kind of a latent variable, we call it in our research, because we cannot directly measure it. See, so how do we measure that? So we do it with the help of a variable. So a variable is nothing but it's just a kind of a statistical unit that we have, which help us to capture the responses in the way we want, and we are able to get the responses. For example, if I want to know about the brand loyalty of any company, so how do I do it? I cannot say, okay, I've got 56% of the brand loyalty. I cannot do it like this. So there are different ways by which we ask questions. So variables are nothing but they are just created by developing the constructs into the measurable form. So variable is a way by which we can measure the construct, and construct is nothing but it's just the abstract way of an attribute that we are looking at. So in our social science research, the most important variable that we talk about is it's the dependent variable and the independent variable, and at times the independent variable is also known as the predictor, because the independent variable, it can be manipulated. Now, are you all hearing me? Hello, can you all hear me? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
All right. Okay. So very quickly, tell me, all those people who are hearing me. For example, if you have to purchase a car, okay, you have to purchase a car. What are the attributes that you're going to take into consideration? Very quickly, tell me. If you want to purchase a car, okay, so you want to purchase a car, decision regarding a car. So what are the things that you will be taking into consideration? Tell me.
Mileage, maintenance expenses,
All right,
then the
very good.
comfort,
Mileage, expenses, comfort. Okay,
uh,
three things.
the,
Huh.
uh, the annual maintenance expenses, the comfort, then how many
Okay.
seater you need, all those things need
Okay.
to be taken into account. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
Gr-
And maybe the comfort
gr-
level and the safety level also. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Or maybe the horsepower or so and so forth. So these things that you have just talked about, sir, they become our independent variable because they can be manipulated. I can manipulate the cost. I can manipulate the the safety level. I can manipulate the comfort level. I can manipulate the mileage. So these are the factors. These are the variables which are known as independent variable, and your dependent variable is the choice of the car. Now another example. Now supposing I want to know that how a patient what are the factors that go in recuperating a patient, or how fast he recovers. So maybe if I talk about, so it can be anything which is related with the environment of the hospital, the nursing part, the medicines that are being given to the person, or maybe the silence level that we have, the hygiene part. So these things, they become our independent variable, and dependent variable is something which is the output that we want. So in our research, this is the most important concept of our dependent variable and our independent variable. So we have already talked about this process, let me very quickly go ahead, because I have got less time with me. So we know prima facie what is the meaning of construct, what is the meaning of a variable, what is the meaning of an independent variable, or a dependent variable. So there can be certain characteristics that that any kind of research design that we pick up, it should be efficient and it should be feasible enough for us to implement it. It all depends upon the kind of objectives that we have. It should be quite flexible, economical, and it should be like there may be some type of the data collection which could be very very expensive. So we have to see our budgets also, we have to see our time also, and we have to see that we are capturing, or we are applying the test and methods which are actually needed for the purpose of our objectives to be achieved. So if we go tangent, so definitely all our efforts would be getting futile. So now we know that any good research design is like the purpose has to be very clear. What are you going for? Are you analyzing the satisfaction level? Are you going to check the intelligence part? Are you going to check the purchase intention? Are you going to check the motivation level part? Are you going to check the happiness level? Whatever it is, it all depends the area that you are working. So that has to be very 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 much clear in our minds, that what we are looking forward to. So because everything will be based on our objectives only. So our objectives, they have to be very simple, and we have to be very clear what kind of variables that we are going to take. So they can be n number of our variables also. They can be extraneous variables, independent variables, dependent variables. I'm not going deep into it, but you just understand that variable is a method by which we can develop the construct into a more measurable form. That is how we are going to capture it. So at times people, they are not able to find out the problem, which are the ways by which we are going to select. So it is, you have to talk about whether you're going to talk about people, about our stakeholders, whether you're going to discuss about any issue, maybe for example maybe the sanitation issue, maybe the tax issue, anything. We can do research on any broad topics, and then what are we are actually going to get it, maybe the cause and effect relationship that it talks about, the casual research that we have. So how do we select a problem? It, of course, it's your call, that on which topic you want to do the research, but of course it should be interesting, it should be measurable, and where it should be relevance, where the availability of data is there. At times, people, they pick up the topic, which is, the data is not available, and I have seen research scholars are struggling like anything. So my submission is that, okay, you need to go for the literature review in the best possible way, so that we can find out the gaps, and then we can pick up the topic that we want to have. So we have to talk about the objectives, because on the basis of our objectives the hypothesis will be done, and on the basis of the hypothesis the questionnaire designing will be done. Now this is the most important part of the entire thing that I have today for you. So it talks about the types of research design. So like, we can always take one kind of research design at a time. So you have to be very clear that what kind of research design that we are going for, whether it's a pure or whether applied, exploratory, descriptive. So you might have seen, you might have read number of research papers, or you might have read about the different kind of thesis. So whosoever is the researcher, in the beginning only they clarify that what kind of research they are going for. So whether it's a kind of a pure or applied. So if I talk about the pure research or maybe applied research, so we are searching anything. As I told you in the initial stage, that there can be two things: either we are trying to find a problem, or we are trying to develop a theory, or we are trying to find a solution to our problem. So they can be, at times, they can be pure research or maybe applied research, where we are trying to find the solution of a problem. For example, if I want to see what are the ways which the we can go for the sustainability, or if we know that there are 17 goals of our sustainable goals which are there, you can pick up any of those goals and you can do a number of research on that. So it can be like pure is again where we in search of something new, where we can contribute new facts or we can add on something, and applied is again for the solution part. Now next one is like very common one is the exploratory research that we have, and more or less people go for the exploratory research. In the exploratory research, it's like the object is to discover. We are exploring anything. So once we explore anything, we are trying to find out, we are trying to search out through maybe a problem, or maybe we are doing it with the help of an idea. So that is our exploring part of it. So exploratory research is the most important kind of research that we have. And it says that for example, if you want to explore that, how a particular process can be improved, or how we can contribute to the society, anything. For example, here basically what happens is a researcher uses his ideas and thoughts, and they are using the ideas and thought to explore any theories which are there. Maybe they are trying to find out the answers to the question like what, how, why. We are exploring. So that is a kind of an exploratory research. Then we have got the next one is the descriptive. So descriptive is basically where the researcher is describing a particular situation. It could be the description of a situation, it could be a description of a case. So anything which is already existing, we are just describing the entire part of it. So this descriptive is like more of the fact finding investigation. Anything which already exists, we are going it. For example, in the case of descriptive, we are trying to find out the or we are doing a survey to determine the average income of the people of Tamil Nadu. So people are already in earning their money. We cannot change anything, but we are just describing what is the earning capacity, earning method of people from Tamil Nadu. So it's just the descriptive part. And at times this descriptive part, it can be some kind of cross sectional design also, where we have got longitudinal design also. But in the case of cross sectional design, it involves the collection of the information from only one given sample of a population. So only once we are collecting. So, and in the longitudinal design is like, the sample is already fixed, the sample is fixed, and we are repeating our research. For example, if you pick up an area, so I'm finding out how was the living condition in the year 2022, and again I'm doing it in the year 2023, 24, 25. So that is a longitudinal research. So this is also part of our descriptive research only. Then next we have the diagnostic research. So here in the case of diagnostic, a researcher is looking to evaluate the cause of a specific problem, or what it is. We are diagnosing it, why a patient has gone bad, or why, what has contributed that, that everyone is falling sick. So we are diagnosing. So that is a kind of a diagnostic research that we have, where we are going deep down to find out the cause of a underlying problem. Then we have the evaluation study. So it is a kind of an applied study. So it helps us to find out the evaluate the study. Like for example, economic programs. So we are trying to find out the how, to what an extent the policies which have been maybe implemented by the government, to what an extent they are effective. So if they are effective, how it is contributing, so on and so forth. So we are evaluating. For example, as a student, they have given the exam. What do? We evaluate the results. Things are already there. We are just checking to what an extent it has contributed, whether the children they have performed well, or whether they have not performed well. Maybe, for example, the new vaccines have been implemented on the people. To what an extent those vaccines, they have been successful in curing those particular disease. We are just evaluating it. Then we have got action research. So for example, where the action is, we are trying to we have a problem, maybe we are trying to give a way by which we can actually overcome, or we can contribute the solutions to the underlying problems that we have got. Then we have got the experimental research. So in the case of experimental research, my dear friends, it is more or like a cause and effect relationship. So in the case of our casual research, we may call it, or we may call it as an experimental research, where we talk about the IV and the DVs. That is the where the main purpose is to understand that which variable is the cause and which is going to be affected. For example, we gave the example of a car purchase decision. So that was a DV, and the number of factors which we have, that is your IV. Then if we want to see that, in a departmental store, if a manager wants to see whether the salesperson are able to influence the sales or no. So here the cause variable will be the salesperson. The way people are going to handle the customer, it is going to affect the sales. So here the cause and effect relationship will be a part of it. So it's more of a systematic way that we have. Then we have got another kind of study which is known as the analytical study. Again, we are analyzing anything, the data which has been collected. We are analyzing to what an extent those things are correct. So there can be different names that can be given, but more or less the purpose is to find out the underlying phenomena, maybe the cause, maybe the solution, maybe it can be related with people, procedure, situation, or any other thing that we are working on. Then there can be some kind of research which is historical. So anything which is, for example, the new concept of NEP is IKS, information knowledge, Indian knowledge system. So in that case, we cannot contribute anything. We can only find out, okay, how the things, for example, there can be some musical pillars in a temple, for example. So this is a kind of a historical research. We are going deep down. Or maybe the carbon dating thing. So we are doing any kind of research. So this is again, where we have something which is already done in the history. We are trying to figure it out, and we are trying to generalize those generalize the findings. Then the survey research is, again, it's like, with the help of our observation, with the help of our questionnaires, we float different questionnaires to get the responses. So again, these can be done by the companies. It can be done, again, what is your purpose, what is your objective to do that kind of survey. Then the purpose is, again, any kind of survey that we do it for a large population. For example, surveys can be done for a small people also, but maybe NSSO, statistical organization, national statistical organization, wants to do anything for the Indian people on a larger scale. So of course the surveys would be done. Then a case study method. Case study is something, anything which is already done, we are again trying to find out. For example, in IIMs, like I did my FDP from IIM Ahmedabad in the year 2011. So everything is taught with the help of a case study. So maybe you are picking up a case. For example, you want to see the working performance or the financial performance of a bank, a case study of Punjab National Bank. So again, that can be a way that you can go for the research. So anything which is already there, we do it. Then field research is again, like anything which you do not do in the labs, anything which you do outside the artificial environment. That is our field study. So that is a part of our different research design. The purpose is that it will give us the way by which we have to move across. And apart from these, also at times there can be some kind of correlation studies, which will talk about the correlation between the two variables, or they can be some kind of the new kind of research that we have is like phenomenological research. Phenomenal logical research, it talks about that, we are evaluating the lived exam experiences of the people. For example, anybody has recuperated from a very chronic disease, so we are studying the experience of the patient with that chronic pain. So again, that kind of research that we can have. So, or apart from that, there can be ethnographic research, which talks about the culture, which talks about the social groups. There can be some kind of grounded theory. So if we go deep into it, then we find, there can be different kind of research designs, which will help us to see that, how we are going to frame our entire research. So more or less, in our social sciences, more or less, we go for the exploratory or the descriptive or maybe the casual design research. And of course, apart from that, people can go for experimental, they can go for correlational, they can go for diagnostic, they can be different kind of research. Now, very quickly, let me touch upon a topic which is related with sampling. Now, we know that, we have to collect data. So how we are going to collect data? It is not possible for us to go to the last level. So many people, they are scattered across. We have got a heterogeneous group of people. So it is not possible. So we take a sample. So when we have the sample, so sample is nothing but it's just the representative of the entire population. And we can always generalize. For example, if I say there's a box of 100 balls and I want to see the quality of a ball, so maybe I pick up 2 balls from that big box and I see that, okay, fine, the sample is good enough. Then we presume, or there is an assumption that, okay, the entire box of 100 balls will be corresponding to the sample. So sample in our research also plays a very important role, because we have got different kind of sampling techniques that have to be applied in the research. So sampling is just a part of the entire population. So we have to talk about the population or the sampling frame and the sampling method. For example, if a company is there and the company has brought about a new project and product in the form of cosmetic, so they want to see at how Gillette is performing. So naturally, Gillette, the population would be, okay, we would be focusing on the male part. But supposing if a company talks about the lipsticks, or the company talks about the maybe face powder. So again, with the population that I'm going to touch upon will be entirely different. So we have to see about the sampling frame, who are the people to whom we are going to get the responses from. So definitely, population can be on the basis of the geographic, demographic, lifestyle, awareness. For example, I want to see that, who are the people who are more strong enough, whether the people from Punjab or maybe the people from Haryana or maybe people from UP. So this on the basis of geographic. For example, on the basis of the lifestyle or maybe the demographics, maybe I want to see, is there any difference between the lifestyle of the North Indian people in comparison to the South people. So again, the population will be different. So again, it all depends that, which area you're taking, which is the sampling frame that you are taking. And in the sampling frame also, we have got a lot of people. For example, they may be working lead people, they may be household people, they may be females. These females, they can be of different age, different sizes, with different preferences. So we have to be very careful, because if I talk about males and females, so they can be males at home also, they can be males in the corporate house also. So maybe their responses are entirely different. So we have to be very careful that which are the units which we have to select, and then then we go for the sampling methods. Now, basically, in our sampling methods, my dear friends, basically there are two kind of sampling methods. I'm just touching upon the topics, because these are the topics that can be covered later on also at depth. So you should know, in case you should not be new to these concepts. So probably what happens is, like, there can be two kind of sampling that we have. We have got probability sampling and we have got non-probability sampling. So in the case of probability sampling, what happens is, like, there is always always, a chance of a sample being selected. For example, if you've got 100 balls, so in these 100 balls, any of the balls, it can be selected, and we can select any random thing, and we can find out the we can get the data. For example, if there's a 200, supposing if there are 200 students from a school, so we can assign any number to the school students, and then I want to collect a sample of 50 students. So from the 200 people, I can select any random people. So here in the what is the chances, like every individual has a chance of being selected in the sample. So if there are 200 students, I want to pick up any 50. So all the students, they have the chance to get selected. So that is the probability sampling. That is the every individual has a chance of getting selected. So it's like more of a random sample, as I told you. Or for example, they can be represent anybody. If I talk about the students, I want to see about if I want to talk about the cleanliness of the school, or I want to see the satisfaction level of the school facilities. So those school facilities will be the same for the class 2 students also, and for class 10 students also. For example, if there's a washroom, or if there's a playing area, it will remain for everyone. So everyone has a chance of getting selected. So that is our probability, probable sampling, along with the other things also. On the other hand, non-probability sampling is like a method where the choice lies with the researcher, whom he has to pick up. So for example, I have a choice that, okay, I'm going to I'm doing a research on females, so I'm going to pick up the females who are from 19 to 25 years of age. So this is my choice. So here everybody doesn't have a chance of getting selected. So that is the non-probability method. Not all the members of the population have a chance to participate in the study. So if I'm doing a study, so the choice will lie, or the ball lies in my court. So there's a probabilities method and non-probability sampling methods. So so generally there are 4 probability methods, and there are 4 non-probability methods. For example, in the case of probability, they can be simple random, systematic random, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, convenience, judgment, quota, and snowball. In a nutshell, very quickly, I'll give you that, what all it stands for. For example, in the case of simple random, is like, every ball has a chance of getting selected. Every student has a chance of getting selected. That is a random sampling. Systematic sampling is basically where, there is a system which is made. For example, here what happens is, like, we have a target object, and there is an interval fixed. For example, I want to see the satisfaction level of the people who are walking into the bank. So I cannot go and ask every banker, or every individual people who are walking into the bank branch. So what I do is, like, I pick up every 10th person. So every 10th person who's entering into the bank, I am selecting that 10th person. So that becomes my systematic random sampling. Randomly, I'm picking up the people, but there's a system that every 10th person who's entering into the bank, I'm going to talk to the person. So then is the stratified random sampling. So stratified is basically where we have created a strata. We have created a method, the way, or we call it as, the particular proportion is there. For example, if there are 3 bags, and there are different balls which are there, from every bag the proportionate balls have to be selected. So example, in a bag A there are 50 balls, in bag B there are 100 balls, in bag C there are 200 balls. So maybe stratified. So maybe from A, proportion is like 3:1:1. So from first bag, I'm going to pick up 3 balls. From the next one ball. Again, from the next one ball. So this is the stratified random sampling that we have. So here you can see this also. For example, simple random, anybody can get selected. In the case of systematic, is like out of 100 people, maybe every second person walking, I can select that person. Cluster sampling is like, I have made it a cluster. For example, I have made a cluster. Okay, people from middle class, or maybe people from the lower strata. So the clusters have been made. So one cluster can be in one area, another another cluster can be from another area, and then they can be combined together. So for example, supposing if we have that physics wala, so this physics wala, it has got 10 branches. I want to see the satisfaction level of the students. So it is not possible to go around across all the students and find out the satisfaction level. So what I do is, like, maybe I select four different branches or different cluster, but here the population is my homogeneous, and then randomly I can select people from that. And then stratified random sampling is people are stratified, they have been classified. Look at here, I want to see because here I have to check that, okay, I'm going to talk to the female who's earning 2,000 to 3,000 rupees. No, I'm going to talk about the person who's earning 5,000 to 6,000. So stratified, they have been stratified into layers or maybe into particular category, and we are picking up those people. So this is just the random sampling that we have, that anybody can be picked up and can be part of the research. Systematic is like every 10th person who's walking into the bank, I'm taking it, or maybe every fifth person, or maybe every 10th person, or any maybe sixth student, anything. So here the population is defined, and we are selecting it at the fixed interval. So it all depends how we are going to we are categorizing it. So everything depends upon the sample size. So for example, if we have got 1,000 people, so we cannot go for 10th. Maybe if we have got 1,000 people, so maybe every 100 person who's walking into it, I can talk to the person. So there's always that, we can always skip the intervals, and we have to see, we have to determine the random start point. So as I said that, okay, I will be starting from number 5. So every fifth person entering into the bank, I'm going to speak to that person. So that point has to be decided. Then stratified, as I told you, they are categorized into subgroups from where we are going to select the people. So for example, as I told you, like people who are earning 2 to 3,000, people who are earning 5 to 6,000, and people who are earning 8,000 to 9,000 rupees. So they have been subgrouped, and then I'm drawing the random sampling from that particular group only. So here we divide the population, but the here part is like the stratas have actually made. So we are dividing them into the homogeneous, because everyone is earning money. So it is a homogeneous group that we have here, and then from each strata we are picking it up. Then in the case of cluster, as I told you, that like here everything is same. As I gave you the example of a physics wala, so it has been divided into the comparable groups. For example, maybe I talk about 1 branch, 2 branch, 3 branch, and 4 branch. Maybe I talk about cluster sampling. Maybe I have divided the schools. Now again, the schools, they can be divided into public and the private. Maybe the cities, maybe tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. So we have classified, we have clustered them, and then we talk about the way we are going to get the sample. Then in the case of a non-probability sampling method, we have got convenience sampling. Please understand, in the case of non-probability sampling, the choice lies with the researcher. The researcher has the choice whom to pick and whom to drop. Please mind it. So you should not get confused between the probability and the non-probability. So probability is basically the every sample has a choice, has a way by which it can be included in the study. Whereas in the case of non-probabilities probability method, the choice lies with the with the researcher. So they can be generally 4 kind of convenience. Again, it's all my convenience. For example, I want to see how many people are are satisfied with the banking services. So randomly I pick up anyone, because it's my convenience. Okay, I pick up ladies from maybe 20 to 25, but I cannot go and ask the people age. So randomly I pick up anyone. Then the judgment sampling lies believe that the participants will fit the characteristics. For example, I want to see that I want to see what is the impact of a deodorant. People are fond of putting deodorants or no. So my judgment would lie that I will not be talking to the kids who are going to school from 1 to 5. I will be targeting people who are maybe class 11th onwards, and who are adults. Then again, the judgment is with me, that whom to interview or how I collect the data. Then quota sampling is again on the basis of a specific, the quotas have been decided, and on the basis of the quota, we check or we collect those people. For example, I want to do any research on policemen. So these policemen, I want to see that, okay, I will only be talking to the COs. I will only be talking about ADCPs. I will be only talking about, or I will be doing my research only with the ACPs. So again, it's a quota which we have done. And the snowball sampling is very wonderful. In the case of snowball sampling, what happens is that, like, we do not know about our next sample. So once we have a sample, we ask the sample to tell me about the another one. For example, if you're talking about, if you're talking about passengers, or maybe if you're talking about anyone. So I said, okay, do you also know somebody who can give me? Then the person can refer to you. For example, if you're doing a research on very old ladies who are staying in an orphanage home, or maybe in old age homes. So I don't know how to find those ladies. So I came across one lady. So I asked her. Then I asked her that, do you also know other ladies who are living away from their children in the old age home? So the one lady will give me the reference of the second will give me the third one. So it's a snowball. Once you go in a snow, you make a small ball of ice, and you keep on rotating. So if the size keeps on increasing. In that similar fashion, here also the snowball is basically one sample, and then, with the help of one sample, we can go on to the another, and then the second and the third and the fourth, and that's how it will keep on increasing. So now, at times, it's very important to find out how to find out the sample size also there. So it is a different procedure. Since I'm running short of time, I will not be talking about this. But there can be different online methods which can be available, where with the help of it, which we can be find out. Here, for example, it's like qualitrix.com. So here, with the help out the size, which is the most feasible size that we should have of the sample, where it is able to, we can get the results also. So there are different ways. Since I'm running short of time, so we have this, there are different ways by which, the confidence level, or maybe the margin error, we find out. But the best way is that, we can always go online methods of finding the correct sample size, and with the help of sample size, we can find out that, okay, this is the feasible sample size that will help me to get the required responses. Then, my dear friends, this is very important. There is some kind of data also that we have. So, they can be, at times you might have heard about the categorical data or the quantitative data. So don't get confused. So ideally what happens is, there can be different kind of data that we can have. For example, nominal, ordinal. I'll just give you very, very quickly, I'll give you the snapshot of it. Nominal is basically anything which is only for the purpose of identification. For example, can you all hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, it's audible, ma'am.
It's audible. Okay. So, for example, if there are number of books in the library, so, there is no criteria which has been set. It's just the random number which has been allotted, and the, it's just for the identification number. Maybe for your PAN number, maybe for your, your mobile numbers. There's no specific criteria. So this is something which is known as nominal, okay, just for the identification purpose. Then ordinal is something where we have to do the ranking part. The child who scores the highest will be number one, then the second, then the third, and then the fourth. We cannot change, we cannot shuffle it. But in the case of nominal, okay, if any book is at number 5, we can place it at number 1, and in any book which is at number 1, it can be placed at number 6 also. So nominal is basically for the identification purpose. Ordinal is basically the ranking part that we have. For example, I want to see that, I want you to rank the choice of the maybe the soaps that you use, or the choice of the soft drinks that you have, maybe Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Sprite. So as per your liking, you're going to rank it number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is ordinal. Then we have got something which is known as discrete and continuous. So in the case of discrete and continuous, discrete is something which is absolute. For example, I say, how many members are there in your family? Or either 2, 4, 6. You cannot say 4.5. You cannot say 3.16 members are there in my family. So that is not your discrete. Continuous is something, it is capable of taking anything into your stride. For example, what is your height? 5.13 centimeter. What is your height? 5.26 centimeters. So we can accommodate any figures in that. So that is your basically your quantitative. So these nominal is just for the identity purpose. Ordinal is basically the ranking part that we have. For example, if you want to see the food that you like, spicy, less spicy, or maybe just normal one. So there can be different examples of our nominal also, just for the identification purpose. And ordinal, please mind it, it is always the ranking part that we have. So here, for the purpose of research, nominal is for the ranking part, ordinal is the nominal part is just for the identification purpose. Maybe for example, I say number one for married, number two for unmarried. So I can interchange it also. I can say it, okay, two is for married, one is for unmarried. Ordinal is always for the ranking. Please remember the word ranking. Okay, so there can be the ranking of your choice, ranking of your satisfaction level, ranking of the students, ranking of your preferences, anything. Then we have got interval data. Now, interval data is again very important data that we call it. We call it like the ratio data and the interval data. They are known as the metric scales. So in the case of interval data also, like it has the capacity to accommodate any zero also. For example, if the temperature is zero, so we don't say that, okay, that the zero doesn't mean zero, means it's very cold. So here interval scale, it talks about that any data can be accommodated. Ratio data is basically we talk about, okay, where the true zero exists. Okay, so if we say that height, weight, food, spending, so if anyone's height, if anyone's is not born, so the age would be zero. Then we've got the quantitative data. Quantitative is discrete and continuous. Simple concept. Discrete is always absolute, always in fixed figures, right? Continuous is like it has a capacity to add on to anything. For example, I say that give me 4.26 kg of rice. I can get it. But in case if I ask about the tosses, or in case if I tell you how many members are there in your family, so you cannot say that 5.16 people stay in the family. So that is the example of a ratio and interval, and they are known as the metric scales. And once you will be proceeding with the FDP, you will be coming across words like categorical or maybe metric scale. So categorical is nothing but it's just the ordinal and the nominal. Nominal is nothing but it's just the identification part, and ordinal is just the ranking part. Whereas in the case of our interval and the ratio data, they are the metric, and on the basis of that we actually talk about the different kind of tests that can be applied. So we say that in the case of ratio, that they also have an absolute zero, which allows for the range of tests that can be applied. So here since there's no time, we can see that the order is there in the ordinal. Nominal is only for the identification purpose. So these are the ways, maybe the counts or the mode can be applied. In the case of ordinal scales, we can go for median, mode, and the counting. If we have got the interval scales where there's a equal interval, okay, like 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, the differences, they are the same. Then in that case, we can actually do some kind of addition and subtraction. We can quantify the differences. It is of 10 and it is of 20. Whereas in the case of our ratio scales, we can do all kind of operations, plus, minus, multiplication, and division, and we say that there's an absolute zero. So there are different kind of descriptive statistics that can be done with the help of the level of measurement of these scales: interval, ratio, ordinal, and nominal. So for example, the most important one in our social science studies is the Likert scale: satisfied, dissatisfied, less, or neutral. So these are the Likert scale that we have got. Okay, so again, you're giving your preferences. So the descriptive statistics can be frequencies, mean, mode, percentiles, can be used to represent such kind of data in our research work. Whereas in the case of interval, for example, as I told you that, it's like the frequencies are there, the equal interval are there. So we can go for bar diagram, we can go for histogram, box plot. These are the ways you will come across if you're new to research with the help of different statistical tools. And when it is zero, we talk about that, that we will be using mean and standard deviation, and histogram and box plot will be used to show the scales of that. Then very quickly, let me give you a hint, something related. That was all about our sampling part. Sampling and the scaling part. So next we have is the type of test. So when we have this type of test, so it talks about that, we can apply some kind of parametric and the non-parametric. Maybe those people who are new to the research, they will be coming across this word. So mine is like just the introduction. I will be not going deep into it. So parametric and non-parametric test, basically, there are certain assumptions which have to be fulfilled in the case of a parametric test. And these tests, they shall be applied only if the data is there. right? So there can be different kind of parametric and non-parametric tests that can be applied, and there can be a lot of other values also. For example, in the case of our parametric test, we know these are all the kind of statistical tests, and there are certain observations which are assumptions which have to be quite true. For example, the observations, they are independent. For example, if I talk about the marks of the students, they are independent. As the student will perform, the marks will be independent. Maybe then we talk about that, there has to be a normality of normality. So it says that the observation should come from the normal distribution. So normal distribution is basically a bell-shaped diagram which we have, and there are certain its own properties which I'm not going to delve right now. Then it talks about there has to be the homogeneity of variance. So variance is nothing but is just the double of the standard deviation. So anything which we are comparing, if we are making any kind of comparison, then it should be actually equal. That's what it talks about. And this is the metric scale that we have, the interval or the ratio scale. And we can only apply parametric test these parametric procedures, they are more robust only when we have got any data in the form of interval and the ratio scale. And at times, in the case of when we apply parametric tests, there are hypotheses which is involved. As I told you, hypothesis is nothing but is just the wild guess that we have. And we have to we have to check different conditions, assumptions, then we apply the parametric test. So there can be different kind of parametric test also, which I'm not going to do it right now with you. But for example, they can be they can be example, for example, they can be predictor is nothing but is just the independent variable that I was talking about. So there we can go for the linear regression. For example, if there are more than two predictors, for example, as I was talking about the car example, so if it is two, so we'll be going for multiple. So there are different ways by which we actually evaluate. So there can be some kind of test that can be applied in the case of parametric. For example, paired t-test, where we have got one independent variable. Maybe independent t-test, where we have got categorical. Please understand, categorical is again, the input and output, where we see that, okay, whether it is the nominal scale, whether it is the ordinal scale. Or then we apply ANOVA, like where we have got more than one predictor. Predictor is nothing but is just the independent variable. Please be very careful. Or where we have got just one outcome. For example, MANOVA, again, these are the names of the tests that can be applied, and all these tests, they have their own respective call. And, for example, if I say about the paired t-test, for example, if I want to see that, okay, if the patients are there, I want to see if a medicine was given to them, what was their reaction, and before the medicine was given, what was their reaction. So, or maybe after their treatment was done. So again, please understand there are a lot of other technicalities which have to be taken care in all these tests. There would be a separate session probably. So we talk about the different kind of variables which help us to capture the constructs. Now we have got the non-parametric test. So in the case of non-parametric tests, we know those conditions, they don't have to be fulfilled. Okay, so these non-parametric tests, they are generally more applicable, and no assumptions they have to be made, or those assumptions they have to be checked for. So whenever we are doing any kind of non-parametric test, for example, we are then there can be different kind of tests that can be applied. The most common one is the chi-square test that we have. So anything, like for example, input and output, they both are your categorical. So categorical is nothing but just your nominal and ordinal scales. So then we can go for chi-square. Or maybe, for example, if there are more than 3 groups, we can go for a Crucial-Wallis test or Wilcoxon test. So these are the different tests which are there. You can, for the moment, you can actually find out that, okay, these are the type of tests that will fall. And all these tests, whether it is ANOVA or maybe anything, maybe analysis of variance or something like that. So they have their own technicalities. There are different models which are made. There are different statistics are there, which are there. And then with the help of those, we check the test. And these tests only will give us the figures. And these tests will help us to check the hypothesis. And then with the help of hypothesis, whether it is getting rejected, whether it is getting accepted, we will will come out with the inferences. Then we have got something related with data collection. I'm sure it is all the primary and the secondary data. So data collection, like different kind of test can be administered for right from the frequency or mean, mode, median. They can be applied, or maybe the correlational analysis. They can be different kind of tests that can be applied. It all depends at what kind of data you have taken in your study. Then we have got qualitative. You might have heard about en vivo software. So en vivo software is generally used where we can go for the qualitative part, and then we can prepare, design different research papers. For example, there can be different kind of analysis, maybe thematic analysis, discourse, grounded, narrative, content analysis. So here we do not require the data from the public, right? So this is a more of a qualitative statistics. Now, very quickly, I want to touch upon a very, very important topic, though I'm 10 minutes late, but very important topic. I want to just give you a bird's eye view. Like when we talk about our hypothesis thinking, whenever we talk about our hypothesis testing, so generally we have got two kind of hypothesis. One is the null hypothesis, and another happens to be your alternate hypothesis. So null hypothesis, we say that it is always negative. Even when I was studying in IIM Ahmedabad in the year 2011, I also got confused very badly. So one of the tricks, one of the professors told me, Rakhi, not to get confused. I'll give you the trick. And the trick is like, are you all able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Okay. What about the participants, ma'am? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We
Hello?
can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Tell me very quickly. Minus and minus is what? Minus and minus is what?
Plus none.
Plus. Minus and plus?
Minus.
Plus minus?
Minus.
Minus. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So the crux, the trick that I got from IM. So like, whenever we talk or whenever we have the null hypothesis, okay, so it is always framed in the negative form. Okay, it is always framed in the negative form. And, we go for the hypothesis testing, and we do it with the help of a p-value. So p-value is nothing but is just the probable value. So if the p-value is less than 0.05, okay, what we say, if the p-value is less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. What we do? We reject the null hypothesis if the p-value is less than the 0.05. All this statistical part is done. We, with the help of software, we arrive at the p-values and f-values and t-values. So p-values, which is help us to find out the value. So if the p-value is less than 0.05, that means we reject the null hypothesis. So the hypothesis, for example, if I say, is there any relationship between the crime committed and the culprit? Okay, so my null hypothesis is there is no relationship that exists between the crime committed and the culprit. I define my null hypothesis in this manner. So after applying all those tests and all, the p-value is less than 0.05, and I said, okay, if the p-value is less than 0.05, I will reject the null hypothesis. So that means my null hypothesis is already minus. I am rejecting the null hypothesis. So minus minus is plus. That means there is a relationship between the crime committed and the culprit. So that's how we draw the conclusion. And in case if the null hypothesis has been accepted, so the plus and minus is equal to minus. That means there is no relationship that exists between the culprit and the crime that has been connected. So this is how we do it. We say that, okay, if it is 0.0, if it is less than 0.05, it is statistically significant. We reject it and accept the alternate, or we say minus minus is equal to plus, and so whichever statement we have written in our hypothesis, we will just reverse it and say that it holds true. Then this was the crux that I wanted to give it to you. Then we say that, okay, we talk about the types of errors. There are generally two types of errors, type 1 and type 2. If you're holding a pen in your hand, you can just write it. Even I got confused very badly. Anything which is true, you are rejecting it. Anything which is true, you are rejecting it. Is a type 1 error. Anything which is true, you are rejecting it. It's a type 1 error. For example, if you're rejecting the right candidate who for the job, that means you are going to encounter with type 1 error. For example, the right medicine, the doctor gave you the right medicine for the patient, but you gave some other medicine. You rejected the medicine which was given by the doctor, which was correct. Again, you will be resulting into the type 1 error. So there can be some type 1 error and type 2 error, which they can be different causes. And just the introduction to it, type 1 is you're rejecting anything which is true. Maybe anything, which was true, you are just rejecting it like anything. Maybe the suggestion that was given by the teacher was true, you are rejecting it. That means you will be encountering with the type 1 error. So I wanted to show you all, in case if you can give me 2 minutes, I'll just finish off my presentation. So if you see, I just brought a small paper for you. See, this is a research paper which is here, which you can see. This is how we write the research. For example, we talk about the abstract, we have the objectives and methods. So look at here, the study was a cross-sectional study. So cross-sectional study was a part of our descriptive study. Then it talks about the on the divorce applicant women. Okay, so this is how they're doing it. For example, they talk about the result part. So they say that, okay, look here. Significant relationship mental health. For example, I'm trying to figure out whether is there any relationship with the mental health and the divorced ladies. So if the 0.5, please see, P is the probable value which we have. So how do we reject and accept? It is always with the help of the P value that we have. Then we have the conclusion part. So look at the introduction that they talk about. They talk about the introduction. Then they talk about the methods. Okay. So in our research also, we have talked about that. Okay, this is a cross-sectional study. So you will be doing any one kind of research design. So cross-sectional is again a kind of a research design that we have. So you might come across different papers where you talk about that, they can be exploratory study, they can be descriptive study, analytical study, diagnostic study, experimental study, cross-sectional studies. So even you have to be very sure, what kind of study that you're going to do. Then look at here. So here we talk about, like they talk about the statistical package for SPSS software. You may be using different kind of softwares. For example, they can be for example, they can be R Studio, or they can be PLS, PLSM, AMOS. They can be n number of software. They can be n number of softwares that can be actually used. All right. So then look here. So look here, to analyze the data, descriptive and inferential statistics were used. Again, we have to be very clear what kind of statistics we are talking about. Inferential is again where we can conclude, we can generalize. Okay. Then look here, this is KSM test. Kolmogorov Simirov test was used to assess the normality. So normality is basically for your, where we were talking about the parametric test. Okay, so those parametric tests that we were talking about the normal distribution. So those assumptions, they have to be checked. Only then we can apply the different kind of parametric tests. So this is how we do it. Then this here in this paper, they have used the parametric test. Look here, then one-way ANOVA is basically analysis of variance. So again, look here, for between paper comparison of normal distribution, okay, variables, the one-way ANOVA was used. So, we are checking for the assumption in the case of parametric test, and then we are deciding which test has to be used. Then they talk about the Pearson correlation coefficient and independent t-test while was used. So these are the ways by which we do it. Actually, I'm just trying to show it to you, and they can be different kind of tests. Look here, Mann-Whitney test was applied to compare the non-normal distribution there. So every test have their own, different features which we have to take into cognizance. Then we go for the analysis part. Look here. So anything where we see that, anything which is less than 0.05, it is significant. So here the education significant or the household. So we can always conclude that, that the education level of the people will also decide about the mental health of the divorced women, or maybe the occupation has an impact. So this is all the less than 0.05. So whether it is the employee, the self-employed person, or the housewife, so they have an impact on the mental health of the divorced women. So this is how we do it. So these are the ways by which we decide upon the test. This is the way we decide upon the p-value. So look at here, I want to find out the relationship between the mental health and factors. So again, this would have been the kind of a the hypothesis that would have been formed. So we are trying to find out to what an extent was it true or whether it was not true. So for example, if the p-value is like 0.03, 0.003, less than 0.05, so what we can say that the relationship between the mental health and the factors, women themselves were blamed. So that means the suspicion and mistrust amongst the people people was one of the reason which will having an impact on the mental health of the employees, on the ladies. So that was a small, I came across, so I thought of it. So this is again the chart that shows about the p-value. So here also it is talking about the p-value, which is significant. So I thought of showing you a paper and giving you the thing. And lastly, just the introduction to the research methodology. At last, when everything is done, we go for the preparation of the report. They can be different heads that we have discussed. All those things, they are mentioned in your research report also. So, my dear friends, it says that if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called the research. Would it be? No, it wouldn't be. So, the research is something where we are exploring anything, we are identifying, we are describing, we are analyzing, we are diagnosing, we are doing the diagnosis part of it, analytical part of it. So, if we know that, okay, if anything that exists, that would not be known as a research. So, I know that, in case if you mix blue and yellow, you will be getting a green color. So that will not be a research. But maybe in case if I mix 4 or 5 different colors and then I come out with a different color, so that would be a kind of a research that we will be doing it. So that's all I have from my presentation side. So these are my books in the market, and thank you so much. So it says that science is not belief, but the will to find out. So please develop that kind of will, because we are all from academics, and we need to have that kind of will for doing the research. And research is a very, very huge area where we can, go long way finding out. And if we can research about anything, you just have an idea and you can do the research. So that's how the creativity comes in. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I have exceeded my time, but I